Welcome to Market Pulse with ACT Research on FleetOwner.com. I'm Josh Fisher, an editor with FleetOwner Magazine, and I'm joined today by Lydia Vieth, a researcher with ACT Research, to talk about some of her insights on emissions regulations and how they will be impacted with the new administration in Washington here in 2025. Lydia, it's great to see you. I hope your 2025 is off to a great start.
Yeah, you too, Josh. Thanks for having me here today. Certainly an exciting start to the year, if that's the right term we want to use, I guess. But definitely a lot of changes coming up.
There certainly are a lot of changes going on, and it seems like we're off to a really fast start. And I think a lot of that is thanks to the Trump administration not wasting any time in laying out the groundwork to reverse or chip away at some of the Biden administration's environmental policies. And we want to talk about some of those federal policies along with what's going on in California, which has really kind of helped lead some other states to make some changes as well. And I think it feels like the industry, the trucking industry and fleet leaders are a little bit at they're wondering or they're hopeful that a lot of these policies are going to be pulled back, but maybe aren't ready to say that that's definitely going to happen. And I'm curious, from your standpoint, for a researcher like yourself, you've been following the EPA's 2027 low NOx regulations, Phase 3 of the greenhouse gas standards, and how California clean truck rules are spreading to other states. What are you watching now as the Trump administration seats its cabinet and fills out those agency positions that affect our industry?
Yeah, so with only in the first few days of the new administration, really paying attention to things like all the sort of slew of executive orders that came out sort of day one, sort of the commentary from the administration around, like you said, these environmental regulations that affect trucking. So really the Unleashing American Energy executive order, which is this prioritization of sort of really going back to fossil fuel exploration, oil drilling. And you can read through that and kind of tick off, okay, well, we can see the direction they're going here, where when it comes to kind of which EPA rules might be under attack. They're not necessarily called out by name explicitly, but there's enough context to kind of get the gist.
Yeah, that is for sure. And I think so, like federally speaking, let's talk about some of those rules. We have the EPA 2027 low NOx rules, which a year ago, if we were talking at this time, we were expecting that to really drive up equipment purchases in this year and next year for fleets who want to get ahead of what were expected to be more costly equipment with longer warranties and more exhaust reducing technologies on them. And then we also have GHG 3, which is the third phase of the greenhouse gas emission standards for heavy-duty vehicles. I think that those two policies kind of get combined in a lot of our heads, as I know those of us on the journalistic side and on the trucking fleet side have been covering this and writing about it and talking about it. Can you just quickly kind of tell us the differences in those and which of those you feel like is under more threat with the new administration?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, even in our own office, there is frequently, we get a little tongue-tied sometimes talking about these two rules. So the 2027 low NOx rule specifically sets new emission standards for NOx and particulate matter. So that's your tailpipe emissions. So that rule does not, that's still a diesel vehicle. There is no version of that rule that gets anywhere near clean tech and zero emission vehicles. That is the GHG Phase 3 rule. So GHG Phase 3 basically sets more stringent GHG emission standards for trucks. And the stringency of the standards in GHG3, so again, the third phase of the GHG rules, gets to the point where it's really going to push for some ZEV adoption. The EPA has always said this is not a ZEV mandate, but there comes a point when you can't comply without selling some ZEVs here. So that's really, that's the key difference here is the GHG3 rule definitely will include sort of some ZEV sales to meet the standards. The 27 NOx rule, just tailpipe emissions, you're still selling diesel vehicles. As you noted, though, there is some additional expense that comes with that, with the new useful life and warranty standards, but it's not, you couldn't call it an attack on oil or anything like that, which based on the new administration's kind of talking points, that certainly does come up when talking about EVs and GHG Phase 3. So to your question, which is stickier, the NOx rule, we've always felt, this might not be the best thing to say, but the GHG Phase 3 rule is the best thing that ever happened to the EPA's 2027 NOx rule, because everyone totally, I won't say everyone totally forgot, but it a lot less complaint about the NOx rule once the GHG Phase 3 rule came about, and everyone was like, whoa, this is really aggressive. This is not, it's just not reasonable. So, and especially, with the executive orders come out, you can see reading through that it is really specifically the EV mandates that are under attack. So GHG3, we think, falls well into that category. Now, whether it will be, it will completely die, or if the standards will just be softened, that's certainly still up in the air. Part of the executive order was, there's no specific rules called out, but it's directing the, sort of federal agency, different federal agencies to report back and say, well, these are rules that we think go against this new sort of pro oil energy policy. So this is what we think we need to start stepping back. So right now we say the NOx rule is certainly a lot stickier than GHG Phase 3.
So would you think that fleet leaders, trucking companies that felt a year or two ago like they were going to be forced into new technologies that aren't proven and that are going to be more expensive, and there aren't infrastructure for charging, heavy duty electric vehicles out there enough to replace our current the US's current fleet of heavy duty vehicles? Is it something that these fleet leaders should be less worried about these new technologies being pushed onto them, at least for the next 4 years?
Yes, I think, and certainly that is kind of the general, I don't know, vibe is the right term, but sort of since the election, I think there has kind of been this positive sort of feeling amongst a lot of those in trucking that certainly we're not going to be forced to, buy and sell ZEVs. And that was kind of the problem with the rule anyways. One, it's really aggressive, and especially for tractors and sleepers, really, you just, by 2032, you're just still not there to where that's a viable business option. But again, part of the problem is that's just, they have to sell these trucks. You can't make anyone buy them. So there's this mismatch where, if you have to comply, maybe you just can't sell as many trucks of any kind because no one wants to buy these really expensive ZEVs. So you kind of get into this kind of sticky unintended consequences situation where you might have old trucks coming out of retirement polluting more than just someone buying a new diesel. So GHG3 was always, not just from what we would say is unrealistic and really burdening, OEs to sell really expensive trucks to people who aren't ready to buy them, who can't buy them. So there's a lot of, like you said, at least for 4 years, we think there will certainly be a reprieve on that front.
Do you think, I know, and I ask you this because it seems like every time I'm on the road at a various trucking industry event on an expo floor, I run into you.
Yep.
Doing your research, often with Ann Rundle, or some of your other colleagues there at ACT Research. And we see nothing but all these new technologies that have been flooding the floors of
Mhm.
all sorts of trucking industry events across here. But like it continues to often seem like there's a lot of new technology, but not, taking away some of the successes we've seen with like yard tractors, electrification, and some regional heavy duty operations. But we rarely have seen like anything really catch on, whether it be hydrogen or even the Tesla semi, which has gotten some good reviews in its distance early on, but we don't see a lot of them out there on the road. But that's like a long way of me asking, do you think that if anything, the industry could have actually used 4 more years to maybe develop some of these things? Or is this regulatory push something that might dissuade some of these startups and even, established OEMs from furthering developing these alternative technologies?
That's a good question. And I think that, for the OEs, they are not going to see this as the new forever, situation. They know that this is still coming. The next administration could be more liberal, could be more open to these things. So they, to be competitive, I don't think they can really afford to, sort of stop developing their, clean vehicle technology, stop developing vehicles. But it does. It gives a little more time for that development, for maybe some costs to come down a little more, because that is always issue. A little more time. Well, we might be pulling back a lot of infrastructure money, but a little more time for hopefully some infrastructure to build up to support this, because like you said, that's always the challenge with sort of broad ZEV adoption is it doesn't matter what the vehicle costs if I don't have anywhere to charge it. So I can't even think about buying this vehicle because there's nowhere along the interstate for me to stop and charge. So this is not like there's not going to be a pause or any sort of end in that development. I do think there is a potential. We have seen some startups. This is on light duty, but I know Canoo just announced bankruptcy recently. So we could see some. It could be a challenging time for startups where they might not be able to sell as many, trucks as they would like. So they might have some challenges in the coming years just with this kind of delay. But you talk to any manufacturer, and what they want is regulatory stability because they've got their planning cycles, development cycles. So so another reason that I think the 2027 NOx rule is stickier is that we're well into these development and planning cycles that manufacturers, they've put lots of time, lots of money into developing compliant engines for the 27 NOx rule. And I don't think they would be happy if that just the plug got pulled on that. So that's kind of always the thing to think about is the stability over the long term is what manufacturers are thinking about. What does the long game look like? Not just, what's the current administration thinking?
I think that's a good point too. And I also would add in there that a lot of these companies are have big footprints in Europe, which is a lot more on the electrification train, so to speak, than we are out here.
Absolutely. Well, and they all have their own decarbonization goals. So you
Yeah.
look by sort of 2040, 2050, a lot of them still publicly say, oh, we only want to sell zero emission vehicles by then. Eh, you know, is that realistic? We wouldn't say so, but kind of to that same point, you can't just if you've got a goal, a corporate goal that you have to decarbonize, you can't stop developing.
Yeah, and like you said, who knows who the next president's going to be, what the next administration is going to want, and I guess if we could predict those things, we'd have different jobs.
Yes.
Um, before I let you go, though, and this has been very interesting, just to get a little bit more of your perspective on those federal regulations. I wanted to get your input on CARB in California, the California Air Resources Board, and their rules. They have the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, the Advanced Clean Fleet Rules. And just before the Trump administration regained power in Washington, California revoked its waiver request with the EPA. Can you maybe just give us a little background on that, and then tell us, is this California waving the white flag, or is this California regrouping to fight another day?
So you're right. I think they saw the writing on the wall that the Biden administration was just not going to get this sort of waiver approved in time. So I think we're going to just rescind this for now so that hopefully it can live to fight another day once we're past this sort of 4-year hurdle. And I think everyone's quite happy about that I've talked to. The conversation just that we've had this whole time is that these trucks are really expensive. Infrastructure is still a problem. Weight is a problem. So fleets, large fleets, of course, they've been sort of looking into ZEVs and trying to be at the forefront of understanding the new technology and how it will fit in their routes, for a few years now. But smaller fleets, even sort of that 50 and above threshold that Advanced Clean Fleet sort of had within it, it's really hard to do because of that upfront cost. So I think generally everyone is quite happy that has gone away. I don't know how the OEs feel now that they don't have any sort of forcing mechanism to make people buy their ZEVs, but yeah, I think that has generally been seen as a positive sort of slowdown on that front, while again, hopefully there's sort of more time to build up the necessary infrastructure to make ZEVs a little more palatable.
So kind of what I'm hearing from you, Lydia, is it's possible that, well, environmentalists and those folks are certainly probably not happy that Donald Trump is president and is making these changes. But the trucking industry itself, which has its own efficiency goals anyway, and obviously wants to burn less fuel to get somewhere, is actually maybe being given a little bit more time to see how it can adopt these future technologies into operations.
Yes, and no. I think absolutely yes, a little more time to improve technology, like I said, hopefully bring costs down. But again, we're likely going to see a lot of money that the Biden administration had sort of carved out within the IRA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. There was a lot of money for clean vehicle infrastructure, charging infrastructure, and even things like, the IRA clean vehicle credits. We might see a lot of this stuff going away. So in one sense, it gives everyone a little more time to learn more, understand better. But we could also see a pullback on some of the support needed to help kind of drive this forward from the other side.
I guess we'll just continue to be talking about that chicken or the egg factor for
Oh, yeah.
electrification, probably, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll be at the ACT Expo 5 years from now, still talking about the infrastructure being the bottleneck too. Hopefully not, but
Well, if there's anything that regulators love, it's an excuse. And that's certainly been a good one for a long time. Lydia, it's great to talk to you. Great to see you and to pick your brain on these kind of complicated times that we're in with this uncertain future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always great to chat. At least I know my job is secure for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Keep doing that research for us and keeping us informed. We really rely on it. And I look forward to seeing you again on the road soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Josh.
Take care.